You can't go wrong with Now It's Dark.
Hey everybody, welcome to Now It's Dark. I'm Jim. I watched a movie on Shudder called Hellhole. And this is a 2024 film, 1 hour and 32 minutes. It's a monster horror movie that I enjoyed this one. This was not too bad. I'll get into some reasons why, and it gave me a little uh, fun vibe to this movie. Hellhole hails from the filmmaking family behind Hellbender and centers on an American-led fracking crew that uncovers a living French soldier frozen in time from a Napoleonic campaign, whose body uh, whose body hosts a parasitic monster. Man, I butchered that. Directed by John Adams and Toby Poser. Written by John Adams, Lulu Adams, and Toby Poser. Man. So we have fracking. When I read the fracking part, I was like, oh, are we going to have a woke inspired fracking is bad for the environment kind of movie? But we did not. So I was very thrilled with that. So Toby Poser plays our lead American uh, fracking crew leader. She's like in charge of the whole setup. They're in Serbia. We have two characters that are like there for scientific purposes, and then we have this whole Serbian team of big bulky Russian frackers, and they are kind of like the collateral damage, so to speak. They're the ones that kind of get in the way of this parasite. So the movie opens up in a very kind of unique way where we see these two French soldiers very, very much in the past. You can tell by their uniforms that they're wearing that, and this is a very long time ago. And they have an encounter that really kind of gives you an idea of where we're headed when we get into the movie. That is like the pre-title credits uh, scene, and it transitions to the present day. And they unexpectedly to me, but it really actually worked. It was a very rock and roll, upbeat um, musical transition, and they used that quite a bit throughout the movie, and it kept the feeling upbeat, and it really, on paper, it seems like that wouldn't work, but it does work for this movie. I did like it. So when we get to present day, we are introduced to the frackers and the fracking team leader, Emily, and this is where we get kind of the personality rundown and the dynamics of each person's relationship with each other. You can tell that they had just been setting up to begin the fracking, so we're like right at like day one of their crews all coming together. Uh, Again, it's like that introduction thing of the character dynamics and who's who, and who has as I wrote it down in my notes, who has a tender tiny hole. Um, so yeah, so it doesn't take very long. We actually get right into the fracking relatively quickly, and they didn't waste a lot of time getting into the discovery of this French soldier's body in the course of their first drilling. Um, the big drill bit that goes into the ground was struggling, and when they pulled it out, it had all this fleshy kind of yuckiness to it, and there was some sub storyline about the scientists possibly being there because there was a history of like all these rabbits having been buried there, maybe. So at first they think that they just plunked their drill bit, just the tip, um, into ground that may have old rabbit carcasses. I don't know if I'm remembering that wrong. But they stop the drilling for just a few moments, but they do also all recognize that there's a definite odor associated with where they just drilled. Um, in a secondary, like off uh, the site a little bit, they are they're also digging there, and that's where they uncover the French soldier. It's got like a goo uh, encasement over him, and so as everybody's getting in real close, he kind of like comes out of it, and he's like, and does that gasping moment, and they immediately sequester him into solitary confinement so that they can figure out how the heck this guy is there and alive. And he's speaking French, so they don't understand him, but he's very distressed. Uh, he is trying to warn them and also asking for them to kill him, but they don't really understand what he's going through. So they decide to make him a meal because he's got to be hungry after being buried for so long, hundreds of years, probably, whatever. Um, and yeah, things kind of go a little sideways after that. I won't get too spoilery into this, but the movie definitely takes a lot of inspiration, in my opinion, from the John Carpenter's The Thing, because we have a parasitic uh, creature that is inside that French soldier. But then, as parasites do, they're always constantly looking for a new host. So we have this movie now where we have this parasite jumping from host to host, doing nasty things. There's a lot of gore, a lot of blood, a lot of splatter um, in this movie. And as the parasite goes from person to person, it obviously creates that situation where everybody is a suspect who has the parasite. And the only identifiable trait is the smell. So when the host gets infected or gets the parasite in it, they put off an odor, and it takes a little while for everybody to pick up on that. But then when they do, then they know. The scientists now are trying to figure out what is this parasite, how is it working, and they got blood samples from this and that, and they're able to concoct this theory of why it's choosing who it's choosing to jump into next and what the motivations are behind it. And when they were explaining this, I realized there is some tongue in cheek in this, but not camp. It's not campy, but there's definitely some dark humor. The theory is silly, but again, it works, and it's just kind of a funny theory that they come up with. And of course, there's scientists being scientists. We have to preserve the parasite so we can study it, which is always a bad idea because then that just means the parasite is alive. It can keep doing harm and infesting itself into people through whatever means they can. And yeah, so there's a really high body count actually, and a lot of that has to do with like the paranoia aspect of it. But when you have that parasite in you and you get killed, you kind of like burst. Like so, there's a lot of body bursting, bloody gore, horror elements in this, and it's not. I didn't feel like it was very, very bad CGI exploding body, bloody gore. I thought it was all like a lot of practical looking effects with the blood splatter and the gore. And it's just now how are we going to survive? And this was filmed on only a $1 million budget, and it definitely looks better than a $1 million budget. I don't think I remember seeing Hellbender, so I'm not like 100% familiar if this is uh, a different style that these Adams um, family directors, writers have. So maybe I'll check out Hellbender. It does sound familiar, so I might have seen it, but if you have Shudder, this is definitely a fun watch. If you like The Thing, there's a lot of similarities between the two films. It's not, nothing's going to be as good as The Thing. You can't get that. You don't have a lot of the body horror part of it, where you have the deformed monster creatures like you did in The Thing. This is, definitely a parasite. You do get to see it, and there's just like a dark humor to this movie that kind of worked for me. Sometimes that's hit or miss, but I enjoyed this, and I think the acting was all pretty well executed. And again, that music worked for me for this movie, and it kept it kind of like pretty upbeat and pretty good. So yeah, check out this movie, Hellhole. Don't let the title or the imagery in the movie poster itself sway you, because that those both are a little bit of misleading to the content of the movie, the meat of the movie. A whole new kind of hell, hellhole. Check it out on Shudder.